Hello everyone, welcome to the channel of MeteoMark Weather, and as usual, we're going to be looking at the tropics here. Yeah, this hurricane season doesn't want to die. We're obviously looking at our area here across the Central Caribbean. We'll look and see if this is our next tropical storm. Could it be Tropical Storm Patty, and could it become a hurricane? We'll break down all the model analysis here and see just how close to the U.S. and the Caribbean islands this will become, along with heavy flooding rainfall totals. I have all your weather. Let's get into it. All right, so starting off with the GFS model here, and then we'll progress in a couple minutes over to the European model. Here is our area, 40% chance now. It's increasing every day to half a day here, and I expect that to continue. The GFS is starting to show something developing. Here we go, the 30th. So as we get towards the middle of this week, we start to see all this moisture really starting to take shape here. Obviously, we're going to have moisture well out ahead of it here in Central America. And look at this area over towards Puerto Rico. We may be looking at another area a little bit behind our main area across the Central Caribbean. So as we continue through the rest of the weekend into the early part of the week, I know some people in Belize, up to the Yucatan Peninsula, down to Honduras, these areas are going to continue to get heavy rain. I'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily with you. But here we go, the 31st into the 1st, the GFS is beginning to initialize this area of low pressure. So here it is, Jamaica's right up here, Cayman Islands, and we're just north of Panama down here. Costa Rica's over here, there's Nicaragua. So as we continue to go through the 2nd, it's going to be steered a little bit more towards the east. So we can start to maybe breathe a sigh of relief here across the Eastern Gulf. Bahamas, you still need to keep an eye on this. Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. This run of the GFS taking it much further east. Obviously, the blocking high up here off the U.S. East Coast is really helping keep this away from the southeast and the Eastern Gulf, and the East Coast for that matter, at least through the first part of the week here into November. So here we go. We could be looking at a strong hurricane. And then look what it does. This model is pretty curious because it now bounces it over towards Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. The last run, it had it going right over Jamaica. So we can't get Jamaica completely out of the woods of this just yet. But here it is on the 4th of November. Yeah, coming up right between Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, GFS has this a pretty formidable hurricane. This run has it missing the Bahamas as well, coming up right through the central Atlantic, but then becoming some sort of an extra tropical storm. And then look what starts to happen as we head towards the 7th. You know, this is getting pretty far out, so a lot can change. But this big blocking high starts to weaken a little bit and then push this system towards the west. So we could be looking at this system for quite some time. There it is, bringing right through the Bahamas and then stalling off the coast of Florida, and then coming right back down into the Caribbean. This is November 10th, so this is pretty far out. That's something we'll have to keep an eye on, and then making another landfall down in here through the Yucatan. Now look at this next system that could spin up off the east end of this system. Now this is pretty far out, so you know, take this with a grain of salt, but it's on the southeast side here of our area of main low pressure. Will likely become a tropical storm or hurricane. And it starts to develop just northeast of the Caribbean islands here. And as we continue through the 8th into the 9th, that heads out over the open sea. So that's some great news there. But look at this. We're still looking at a tropical wave out here southeast of Trinidad and Tobago. And here's our European run. As we continue in time, you can see the next couple days, we're going to continue to have a lot of rain here across Central America, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, up through Hispaniola here, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, even over towards Puerto Rico. And I'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily with you here. But look at this, the 29th into the 30th. Look at this. European has increased the rainfall totals here across Central America, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, all the way over to Puerto Rico, even the Lesser Antilles here to an extent. Trinidad, Tobago, and Grenada here stays a little bit out of it for the most part. You will have some scattered showers. But look at this into the 30th, into the 31st, and here we go into the 1st. The positioning of the blocking high is much further south here on the European model. Still going to get some tropical moisture up here into the Western Gulf, according to the European model here. But look at this. As we head towards the first part of November, There's a couple areas showing up here on the European model, a little bit slower evolution than the GFS, but there's 2 areas that we're going to be watching here. And look at this. This is a prolonged period of heavy rain from Central America, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, all the way through much of the Caribbean islands here. So we're going to be looking at an extended period of heavy rain. And there we go. The European model is further west with our area of low pressure. It's more of a broad area of low pressure, but look at this. We should see tropical surge up here, especially on the east side of this low pressure system. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how this big trough up to the northwest plays into it. This is November 5th, so we're getting pretty far out here. So the last couple frames here, the last frame you can see on the European model shows a very broad area of low pressure that we'll have to continue to keep an eye on here. Doesn't develop it as strong as the GFS, but the trend is in that general direction. And one last thing, look at the activity out here, not just out here into the MDR, but southwest of the Cape Verde Islands. We're still looking at some strong tropical waves here, and some of these may actually make it into parts of the southeastern Caribbean. And don't forget, there's more weather coverage continuing. But before we continue, don't forget, if you have made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. And thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our mid-layer and moist air analysis at mid-layers here. You can see as we put this into motion, you can see where the moisture is going to be as we head throughout this week. Our system trying to get organized here across the central Caribbean. Lots of dry air, though, protecting Florida and the southeast coast into the eastern Gulf. It's on the southeast portion of this area of dry air where you have the moist air meeting it. That's where we're probably going to see our tropical storm or potential even hurricane here develop. And it's actually trending eastward here as this high pressure noses and builds south and westward here. So that kind of kicks the moisture out to the east here. It looks like this system has a good area to grow in, and I'll show you those wind shear analysis momentarily. We could be looking at a tropical storm or hurricane moving through Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, these areas. That is the trend so far, but look what starts to happen. This system starts to bend westward here, as the GFS has been very consistent with, moving through the Bahamas, maybe becoming extratropical, and then another system trying to form on the east side of it over here. So we could be looking at a very extended period of very heavy rain, and look at this. As this system moves, the easterly second system moves off to the northeast, our main system is back in the Caribbean by November 11th, making landfall in the Yucatan and heading into the southern Gulf of Mexico. And for our European run here, this is what's happening. You can see European is showing more dry air initially here as we go through the mid part of the week. So let's switch over to our extended run here, picking up where it left off. You can see, it's not until, it's a little bit later on the Euro. You can see on the southeast corner of all of this dry air, this nose of high pressure building south and westward. Look at that. Central America, come the 1st of November into the 4th, is going to be cut off from a lot of moisture. So finally, you'll get some dry air. But look at this. Into the central and eastern Caribbean, that is where our low pressure starts to form. And the Euro is further west on the low here, right around the Jamaica area, Haiti, and to the eastern tip of Cuba and the Turks and Caicos. And here's our wind shear analysis. Upper level wind shear. You can see across the Caribbean as we head through this week, there's very minimal wind shear going on. It's much further to the north here. Initially, you do get some wind shear up here towards the north central Caribbean islands, but for the most part, this will remain on a very hospitable side if it does manage to follow this path on the eastern envelope and continuing towards the northeast. So very little wind shear encounter until it gets to about November 6th. It starts to move westward. I think if this scenario does play out, it'll likely become a very extratropical system. And as you continue through November 8th, 9th, and 10th, you can see it veering southwestward into the Caribbean. Look at that. It does get back into an area of favorable development. So if we take a look at upper level vorticity, the steering currents, you can see what's happening here. Most of the steering currents at this point, and these model runs are taking this further east now. It has to do with this big area of high pressure just off the U.S. East Coast. It's stronger than initially realized. But you can start to see the system doesn't really have much of an exit strategy to the northeast, and hence the GFS brings it just under the ridge here and pushes it towards the west towards the end of the forecast period there. Gets very close to Florida. You can see we do have a trough digging in here to the central states, so it's all about timing of that. But GFS wants to bend it back towards the northwestern Caribbean here, which is kind of insane. And then it does build that high pressure right over the southeast. So still keeping the southeast protected, but it's going to be really close to South Florida. So stay tuned. It could get interesting. And then that potential eastern side of that system on the eastern envelope of that. So we're still dealing with these systems out here. Rainfall across the Caribbean, Central America, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. Yeah. As we head throughout the week, it's going to solidify with more heavy rain with what happens with our potential system here. Definitely likely becoming a tropical storm. Could be Patty. So as we continue in time, look at this. We got heavy rain. Yeah, there's a little bit of a rain shadow here in Jamaica. Here, Cayman Islands. We're looking at an average of 90 to 140 millimeters of rainfall here. You're looking at anywhere from about 3.5 all the way up to 6.5 inches of rain, even towards Belize here. You're going to see rainfall totals right around 100, 150 millimeters. That's going to get you up towards 3.5 to 6.5 inches, locally higher amounts possible, even Honduras here, all the way up to Cancun, the east coast to the Yucatan. Look at Hispaniola over here towards eastern Cuba, Turks and Caicos, southeastern Bahamas. You could be looking at rainfall totals on the order of close to 150 to 200 millimeters. That's going to get you up towards, say, that 5 to 8 inch range. As we look at the eastern Caribbean here, yeah, that tropical wave moving through and that surge of tropical moisture, it's going to be across Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, over to the Virgin Islands. A little bit drier, though, towards Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago, on the order of about 20 to 40 millimeters, nothing more than, say, a half an inch or so. But yeah, it's the North Central Caribbean Islands. That's where you're going to see totals of 100 to close to 200 millimeters. You're going to see solid 4 to 8 inch totals in many areas. And for the Western Pacific, how is everybody doing out here? Philippines continue to get inundated with rainfall here. We have what's left of Tropical Depression Trami here over towards Vietnam. We're still talking about that, and we have a new tropical storm, Kong-rey. This is likely to become a typhoon as we go out here in time. What's left of Trami will drift eastward, unfortunately, and provide the northern Philippines with more moisture. But here we go. October 29th into the 30th and the 31st. This is likely to become a strong typhoon, potentially up towards Category 3, 125 mile an hour winds. Unfortunately, another landfalling typhoon potential here for Taiwan as we head into October 31st here into the 1st. It starts to move up towards the Shanghai area. One thing to note, South Korea Peninsula has been very dry. Seoul, these areas have not seen much rain. This looks like it's going to head up towards the Japanese islands, but you may get some rainfall here along the far southern South Korean peninsula here. So watch out. You might get some beneficial rain. Japan doesn't need any more rain. There's so much, typhoons and landfalling tropical storms, tropical moisture. Thankfully, though, it will be out of the picture. Behind it, November 3rd. Unfortunately for Vietnam and the Philippines, we could be looking at another tropical system with tremendous tropical moisture. Inundation here continues for the Philippines and Vietnam. That heads westward, but on the east side of it, as you know, there's going to be a lot of tropical moisture spinning off here towards the Philippines. And here in the Eastern Pacific, look at this. We have what's left of Christie, which was a Category 5 last week. And we have a few areas of development out here. Could these affect the Hawaiian Islands? Well, let's put this into motion. Likely to become a tropical storm here through midweek. And then it's going to come pretty close here towards November 3rd next weekend to the big island of Hawaii. So we could be looking at some big tropical moisture November 3rd, 4th, and 5th for parts of the Hawaiian Islands. And thanks to Tropical Tidbits for Tropical Storm Kong-rey. Look at this system. It's looking really well developed. It's going to be a typhoon before long. And the Western Pacific here, rainfall totals from Vietnam, there into the northern Philippines, as well as Taiwan, Shanghai area, all the way up to Japan. We could be looking at rainfall totals here in some of these areas. See these darker browns? 400 millimeters. That's getting dangerous. We're getting up towards 8 to 16 inches plus, some areas close to 20 inches, and up towards Shanghai to Japan. These areas could see upwards of about 200 millimeters. That's getting you up towards, say, that 5, 8, 9, 10-inch range. All right, so the future radar here, we may be looking at a little bit of shower and thunder shower activity across the Carolinas here, maybe a little bit up here in parts of the Adirondack, St. Lawrence area, and northern New England as we head through the rest of your Sunday. But for the most part, it's going to remain very dry across the east. You're no stranger to this. Obviously, a few showers here, maybe across the Outer Banks as we get towards 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Now, look at here. We could be looking at a few showers or thunder showers approaching the Cleveland, Akron area and Erie area towards 10 a.m., between 7 and 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. That quickly lifts to the northeast towards Buffalo, Syracuse, Utica area. So we may see a few showers here, maybe some down into parts of southern New England, northern New England as well. But most of the moisture is going to be over here into Canada. So yeah, it's going to remain pretty dry here across the east, but you may see some spritzels of rain here. Those of you that managed to get some measurable rain, hopefully it's in the form of some beneficial rain here. And I have a few of my fall foliage photos. It's been slow to convert them over because of the new format. However, you can see this is Shenango Valley State Park in New York State. I shot these back on Friday, October 18th, back when the area was approaching peak. And as you can see, it was golden hour. It was right around 5:15, 5:20 time frame just before sunset. That's when you get the best sun angle. And this is just a magical, beautiful park that I like to go to feature some of my fall foliage. And as you can see, two glacial lakes here. Get some nice reflections with that golden hour and those oranges, reds, and yellows just coming out so beautifully. I just love the glow. This is a beautiful park. If you can ever visit it, it's one of my favorites in upstate New York. It's just one of those beautiful type of parks, and look at that glow. You just can't beat that this time of year. We're getting past peak in many areas, so get out there and enjoy it and snap some good photos. And as we pick up where our future radar left off, as we continue through Tuesday into Wednesday and into Thursday here, so we're getting into, Halloween Day, there is that area of low pressure. It's trying to move into this big blocking high, but it keeps the weather mostly nice. How far east is this going to make it? Because I know many of you have posted in these areas. You are bone dry. Rivers and creeks are running low to almost non-existent. Look at this. By 31st at 8 p.m., we could be looking at rainfall pushing through parts of Cleveland, Buffalo, all the way down to Tennessee and the New Orleans area. So this low pressure is starting to make it east. How far east does it make it, though? We could see a few showers into November 1st here across parts of New England and the Mid-Atlantic. So that's a development we'll have to keep a very close watch on. But look how quickly it weakens. It doesn't even make it to the Carolinas here to provide you with any rainfall, so to speak. And then our next system we'll be watching really starts to develop in the plains here. But this blocking high really is stubborn. Many of you are very surprised that you haven't seen a drop of rain through the entire month of October. And unfortunately, that may continue here as these storms are forced up and over right up here into southeast Canada. And rainfall totals here on our European model, you can see we have a few showers and storms here around the North Carolina, South Carolina area. Most areas will remain dry, unfortunately. You can see our next storm system across the central part of the U.S. That is going to feed moisture up and over that big ridge, but we could get some measurable rainfall here in parts of the eastern Great Lakes. That would not be, though, until right around November 5th into the 6th. We may get a few spritzels of rain, though, here into the eastern Great Lakes as we head through Tuesday, maybe amounting to 1/4 of an inch on average. And for our European run here for Canada, what is going on up here? We got area of high pressure dominating just like in the eastern United States. That's going to continue. It's really quiet until about the midweek. We start to get some overrunning moisture here into Ontario and Quebec. Maybe some beneficial rain here. We'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily. British Columbia, though, look at this 976 millibar low moving in. This is going to provide you with tremendous precipitation, mountain snow, valley rain, And as we continue in time, that low kind of sinks to the southeast towards the Pacific Northwest. But here it is, low pressure winding up through the Great Lakes as we head into the 31st, Halloween, into the 1st. That's pretty much skims across southern Ontario, Quebec, and moves out quickly into the Canadian Maritimes. And we're just going to set up this pattern. We're going to get these low pressures moving up like this. So it's going to help prevent, or not prevent, but help bring some beneficial rains here to southeast Canada. And look at British Columbia, just socked in with more Pacific moisture just moving in here continuously. And then as we head through the 5th into the 6th, look at this big area of low pressure. This is a 984 millibar low. That's going to be some good rain all the way down to New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as well. And rainfall amounts here for Canada, yeah, it's going to be pretty wet across southeast Canada as well as the west coast of Canada. The central provinces are very dry, unfortunately. But the west coast could see up to 100 to 200 millimeters of rainfall and some mountain snow. You could be looking at 4 to 8 inch totals. And here across southeast Canada, look at some of these red areas up towards 70, 80, 90 millimeters. You're going to see widespread amounts close to about 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches in some areas. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning digital professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
And temperatures across the country as we head through our new week here. Yeah, it's a little bit cooler up here in the Northeast, 40s and 50s. Some 60s here into the Ohio Valley. Looking nice, but look at this. This looks summer-like in the Southern Plains. 80s and even near 90 degrees. This warmth is going to spread east throughout the week. You can see 70s all the way up into portions of the eastern Great Lakes through Tuesday into Wednesday. Look at this. 80 degrees in Pittsburgh. This is crazy to have 80s this far north this time of year. Into Thursday, though, you can see reality is returning here to the upper Midwest into the 40s. We're well into the 70s and nation's capital southward into the 80s. But look at this for Friday, November 1st. It's feeling a little cooler. Back into the 50s here. Even some 80s down here along the Gulf Coast. And as we head into Saturday, look at this. This looks really seasonably up here. We're still running at above average. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton, Zipper, Susquehanna, River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. We're looking at a beautiful week here. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're warming up from the 50s to the 70s come midweek. We do have a front approaching on Thursday, a chance of showers into Friday as well. Cooling down for the end of the week, though. Back towards seasonable levels into the 50s. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.